Cali lay on the grass, trying to steady her breath, her mind still racing with the terror of what had just happened. The creature hunting her and the building collapsing. The sky above her was clear, the stars twinkling softly, a strange contrast to the chaos she had just escaped. Her body ached, every muscle sore from the desperate run. But at least she was alive, for now. But as she gazed up at the stars, that nagging feeling wouldn't leave her. This wasn't over. The quiet of the night felt wrong, like the calm before an even darker storm. She sat up slowly, her eyes scanning the horizon, looking for anything out of place. And then she saw it. A beam of light shot down from the sky, illuminating the ground just a few feet in front of her. It was blinding, and she shielded her eyes, her heart hammering in her chest once more. The beam widened, casting an eerie glow across the field, and before she could even react, she felt a strange pull, like her body was being lifted off the ground. "No!" Cali screamed, scrambling to grab onto the grass beneath her, but it was no use. Her body was weightless now, caught in the grip of the light, and she was rising, faster and faster, up toward the stars. She twisted, kicking her legs, trying to break free, but the pull was too strong. The night sky grew larger, the world below shrinking until it was nothing more than a blur of darkness and trees. Cali's breath caught in her throat as the stars seemed to envelop her. Suddenly, the light dimmed, and she found herself inside a vast metallic chamber. The air was cold, sterile, and the walls curved around her like the inside of a strange cocoon. The only sound was the faint hum of machinery. She floated for a moment before being gently lowered onto a smooth, glowing platform. The beam of light disappeared, leaving her standing in the center of the room, disoriented and terrified. Before she could make sense of her surroundings, a figure emerged from the shadows. But this one wasn't like the creature that had hunted her in the building. This one was tall, humanoid, with sleek silver skin that reflected the soft light of the chamber. Its eyes, large and dark, glimmered with intelligence, but no warmth. It studied her in silence. Who are you? Where am I?" Cali stammered, her voice trembling. The figure tilted its head slightly, as if considering her question. Then, without a word, it gestured toward a panel on the wall. The room around her began to shift, the walls sliding away to reveal a massive window. Cali's breath hitched. Outside, stretching endlessly in every direction, was space. Stars, galaxies, and strange glowing nebulae danced in the distance. She was aboard a spaceship. "You have been chosen," a calm, emotionless voice said, though the figure's lips didn't move. "Chosen? For what?" Cali demanded, her pulse racing. "I didn't ask for this." The figure stepped closer, its dark eyes never leaving hers. "You survived the test. The one who hunted you was the last of many trials. Few make it this far." Cali's mind spun. A test? The creature, the building, the terror? Had it all been orchestrated? Her fear turned to anger. Why me?" she demanded, her fists clenching. The figure's voice remained cold and steady. "You are special, Cali, more than you realize. You possess something we need." Cali took a step back, her heart pounding harder. "What do you want from me?" The figure didn't answer. Instead, the walls began to close again, sealing her in the strange chamber once more. The ship's hum grew louder, and the stars outside started to blur, as if the ship was preparing to move. Panic surged through her. She couldn't be trapped again, couldn't be part of whatever plan these beings had for her. She had to escape, had to fight. But as the ship surged forward, Cali realized she was already far from Earth, further than she had ever imagined possible. And deep down, she knew there was no going back. Her nightmare was only just beginning. Cali's heart pounded in her chest, the walls of the metallic chamber closing around her like the jaws of some monstrous creature. The tall silver figure remained motionless, its dark alien eyes locked onto her, unblinking and unreadable. She felt like a trapped animal, cornered and helpless, and the cold, sterile air seemed to thicken, making it harder to breathe. Panic surged through her veins. She had to escape, but how? She was aboard a spaceship far from Earth, surrounded by technology she couldn't even begin to understand. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of the figure's words. You possess something we need. What could they possibly need from her? She was just an ordinary person, or at least she had been. Before waking up in that nightmare of a building, before being hunted by that creature, before being abducted by whatever these things were. Her life had been normal, boring even. But now everything was spiraling out of control. The figure stepped closer, its towering presence sending chills down her spine. She backed away instinctively, but there was nowhere to go. The walls of the chamber were smooth, without seams or doors, just cold, reflective surfaces that seemed to mock her. She pressed her palms against the wall, hoping to find some hidden mechanism, some way out. But the surface was featureless and unyielding. Stop, she said, her voice trembling. You're making a mistake. I don't know what you think I have, but I'm not special. I'm just me. The figure didn't respond. Its hand, if it could be called a hand, reached out toward her, long, slender fingers tipped with smooth metallic pads. As it approached, Cali felt an overwhelming sense of dread, as if the very air around her was growing colder, denser. Her skin prickled, and she could almost feel the energy radiating from the figure's hand, a soft hum that vibrated in her bones. She tried to pull away, but there was nowhere to go. The figure's hand hovered just inches from her face, and Cali braced herself for whatever was coming next. But instead of pain or some violent reaction, the air around her seemed to shift, a faint warmth replacing the cold. For a moment, it was almost soothing, like a gentle pulse running through her body. Her muscles relaxed, her mind growing foggy. Suddenly, images began to flood her mind. Memories, thoughts, things she couldn't have known. Faces she had never seen, places that felt both familiar and strange. Stars, planets, civilizations rising and falling across galaxies. The vision was overwhelming, a cascade of information that made her head spin. And in the center of it all, she saw herself, standing at the heart of something vast, something ancient. She gasped, staggering back, clutching her head as the vision subsided. What was that? The figure withdrew its hand, tilting its head as if observing her reaction. Its voice, cold and devoid of emotion, echoed in her mind once more. You are the key. The key to what? Cali shouted, her frustration boiling over. She was done with cryptic messages and shadowy figures. She wanted answers. The figure remained silent, and instead of answering, the chamber around them began to change. The smooth metallic walls shimmered, and suddenly they were no longer in the chamber. Cali blinked in shock as the scene shifted around her, transforming into a vast, open expanse of stars and nebulae. They were floating in space, or at least it appeared that way, with nothing but the endless cosmos stretching out in all directions. This is the center, the figure said, its voice still calm, as if they were discussing something as mundane as the weather. The center of what? Cali asked, her voice cracking as she struggled to comprehend what was happening. The center of all things, the nexus from which all realities flow. Cali's mind reeled. She wasn't just aboard some alien spaceship. She was in the middle of something far bigger than she had ever imagined. The vastness of space around her seemed to press down on her, the weight of countless stars and galaxies making her feel impossibly small. She turned to the figure, her hands shaking. Why me? What do you need from me? You are connected to the threads, the figure said, its dark eyes boring into hers. Your existence touches the fabric of time and space in ways that others cannot. You are a convergence point. I am a convergence point. Cali echoed, confused. The figure continued, its voice unyielding. There are many realities, many versions of existence. Some collide, some diverge. You stand at the intersection of several critical points. You are a focal point in the balance of what is and what could be. Kali shook her head, her frustration bubbling to the surface again. I don't understand. I'm just an ordinary person. I haven't done anything special. I don't even know what's going on. The figure's expression remained unreadable. That is why you are here. We require your help to stabilize the rift. The rift? She asked, her heart sinking. The figure raised its arm, and the stars around them began to shift, rearranging themselves until they formed a swirling dark void in the distance. It looked like a black hole, but far more chaotic, more violent. Tendrils of energy lashed out from its center, distorting the space around it, pulling in light, matter, and time itself. Kali could feel its pull even from here, a deep, gut-wrenching sensation of being drawn into the abyss. That is the rift, the figure said, a tear in the fabric of space and time. It is growing, feeding on the energy of collapsed realities. Soon it will reach your world. Kali's chest tightened as the gravity of the situation hit her. The figure wasn't lying or exaggerating. If this thing kept growing, it would consume everything. Earth, the stars, maybe even time itself. And you think I can stop that? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. You are part of the convergence, the figure replied. Your presence in the Nexus is essential. Only you can mend the tear. Kali stared at the rift, the swirling chaos in the distance. Her mind was racing, torn between disbelief and fear. This was too big, too impossible to be real. But deep down, she could feel the truth of the figure's words. There was something inside her, something that connected her to this cosmic storm. How? She asked, her voice trembling. How am I supposed to fix this? Before the figure could respond, the ship jolted violently. Alarms blared and the stars outside flickered. Kali stumbled, catching herself on the smooth floor as the entire chamber shuddered. What's happening? She shouted over the noise. The figure turned toward one of the control panels that had emerged from the floor, its hands moving swiftly over the alien symbols. We are under attack. Attack? From what? The walls around them shimmered again, and suddenly Kali could see the source of the disturbance. In the distance, beyond the rift, ships were appearing. Dark, angular vessels that seemed to blend into the void itself. They moved with unnatural speed, their sleek forms cutting through space like blades. They are the Riftborn, the figure said, its voice grim. They seek to accelerate the destruction. Panic surged through Kali. This was too much. She was just a person, an ordinary person, thrust into a battle between realities. How could she possibly be expected to stop any of this? Before she could protest, the ship rocked again, the Riftborn ships firing bolts of energy that rattled the walls. The figure turned toward her, its calm demeanor now replaced with urgency. There is no more time. You must stabilize the rift. How? Kali shouted, her frustration and fear mixing into one. I don't know how. The figure's eyes locked onto hers, and for the first time there was something that resembled emotion in its voice. A flicker of desperation. You must trust your connection. The threads will guide you. The room around them shifted again, and suddenly Kali was standing in front of a strange, glowing console. Symbols floated in the air, shifting and twisting in patterns that hurt her eyes to look at. Place your hands on the console, the figure commanded. Kali hesitated, her heart racing. The Riftborn ships were closing in, the rift was growing larger, and everything felt like it was spiraling out of control. But something deep inside her stirred, a feeling she couldn't quite explain. It was as if, despite the terror and confusion, she was meant to be here. Meant to do this. With a deep breath, Kali stepped forward and placed her hands on the console. The moment her fingers touched the surface, a surge of energy coursed through her. The symbols flared to life, and suddenly she could see them, threads of light stretching out into infinity. They connected everything, realities, worlds, lives, and she was at the center of it all. The threads pulsed and Cali could feel the rift pulling at them, unraveling the delicate balance. But she could also feel the solution, the way to weave the threads back together to heal the tear. Her mind focused, her fear melting away as she became one with the Nexus. Her hands moved instinctively, guiding the energy, mending the fabric of space and time. The rift pulsed, resisted, but she pushed back, her will stronger than the chaos. The tear in space was now repaired. The Riftborn ships were still out there somewhere, but with the threads woven back together, she hoped that everything would return to normal and the Riftborn would no longer be a threat.